Before we begin, I want to let you guys know that this video was recorded about 3 weeks ago. Since then, I've learned new information regarding the content of this video. I didn't want to completely scrap the video because I think it's still an interesting topic, so I'm going to be adding interjections throughout the video accordingly. Enjoy. I remember back in the day, the who's who of zombies all really came down to your highest round. I once told a group of friends back in 2011 that my highest round on Kino was 30, and they didn't believe me. They couldn't comprehend the fact that somebody can get to around 30 in zombies. It seemed unheard of. Now fast forward to Black Ops 3, and what we found was that there was a limit. The highest round, the round of zombies you could never beat, no matter how skilled you were, was round 255. It seemed as though the game was glitched out, and after that the round counter would just stop ticking up. And today what I thought I would do is explore this round ticker and try to figure out why round 255 is the highest round in zombies that no zombie slayer could ever beat. Here's what we know so far. We know for a fact that this is a hard limit. Me personally, I'm not skilled enough to get to round 255 myself, so I went into a game with the help of some PC mods, and this mod allows me to easily add and subtract rounds to my game, so I could jump to virtually whichever round I want. So what I did is I kept adding rounds until I got to round 255, and you'll notice in the little marker it keeps saying no matter how many times I add rounds, I can't keep going past round 255. There is a hard limit set there, and no matter what I do, no matter what mods I use, I can't get past 255. Some people also think that round 255 is a glitch or a bug in the game. And the game definitely does get glitchy into the higher rounds. People start to experience a lot of lag, and they also experience many different crashes in the later rounds. The round counter, though, isn't what's responsible for these crashes. This is more the fault of consoles and their limitations, the amount of RAM that they have allocated to zombies. And you'll notice that as I play at around 255 on PC, I have my settings pretty low. However, the game runs very smoothly at round 255. I can even jump around to different rounds, like play around and really abuse the round counter and have no issues. This is how we know that the round counter isn't actually the culprit of these glitches, and most likely itself isn't all that broken. So after trying to break the round counter, it's very clear that Treyarch specifically set round 255 as the limit. This isn't a bug, this isn't a mistake. They made a decision when they were designing Black Ops 3 to limit it to 255, and it's actually a pretty big hint, the number itself. I know it sounds arbitrary at first, but when you think about the number 255, it's actually our first hint into what's going on here. Think back to original arcade machines such as Pac-Man. The highest level you could reach on Pac-Man, in which the game still functioned properly, was level 255. Once the game hit level 256, it would break and start to become glitchy. This is because Pac-Man was an 8-bit machine. This means that every bit of data was stored in what's called a byte. In order to understand bytes, we need to first understand binary. Binary is a counting system that computers use. In this counting system, you have a 0, which is of course a 0, and then you have a 1, which represents the number 1. And then you can make combinations of those 1s and 0s represent other numbers. For example, 1-0 is the number 2, 1-1 is the number 3. So each bit of data is stored in what's called a byte, a combination of 8 1s and 0s. Each specific 1 or 0 is what's called a bit. There are 8 bits in a byte, and you can use those 8 bits to represent some kind of information. So you can, for example, string together 8 1s and 0s into, say, 10, 10, 10, 11, and this represents the number 171. You can then make 1000, 1000, and this is the number 136. You can also do 0001, 1010, which is the number 26. If you wanted to fill all of your 8 bits with the number 1, you would get the largest number that you can possibly store in an 8-bit system, which is 255, the max number you can get using just 1 byte. So then you add one more to this number, and there is no more space. So what it does is actually roll over back to 0. And instead of having a combination of 8 ones, what you instead have is 8 zeros. And this is level 256, but to the computer, this is actually just level 0, and the game isn't expecting a level 0, and it breaks. And this is why Pac-Man gets very glitchy and half of the board ends up breaking. This is kind of our first hint into what's going on here. The number is set to 255, so it has to do with how data is stored in Black Ops 3. Another hint is the max kill counter. The max kill counter is 65,535. This is actually the largest value that you can store with what's called an unsigned short integer value. This is a data type in C++, which is the language that a game like Call of Duty is most likely written in, or some variation of that language. This data type is at most 2 bytes or 16 bits. This means that you can represent any form of data using 16 ones and zeros. So if you wanted to max it out and have a string of 16 ones, this would represent the number 65,535. This is, of course, the max kill counter. You can't get any more kills after that point. You've maxed out that bit of data that they allocated to the number of kills in game. What this means is that Treyarch specifically chose this data type to represent their kill counter, and they could have, if they wanted, used this same data type to represent their round counter, but they chose not to. They intentionally used an 8-bit data type to limit the number of rounds that you can reach in a zombies game, and because the round counter is an 8-bit data type, you can go from round 1 up to round 255, but no higher. So now that we know what's going on under the hood, we have to kind of question Treyarch's decision making. Why would they limit us to around 255 when they could very easily have just allowed us to go even higher? I have 2 guesses. One is that it may pay homage to the days of 8-bit arcade machines in which the max level was often 255, and that was of course due to the limitations of the hardware. Now we're not as limited, but maybe they felt as though most players won't get to round 255, so we can set that as a nice limit, and for the players who do get that far, it'll be a nice homage to the days of arcade machines. Another thought is that Treyarch wants to save as much resources as possible. When you're making a big AAA title, there's a lot of stuff, and Black Ops 3 is no exception. Black Ops 3 Zombies keeps track of more data than any other zombies game. There's a lot they're counting and keeping track of, and they want to save space where they can so they can fit in as much as possible into this game. If you ever heard Jason Blundell talk about the development of a video game or the development of Black Ops 3, it's always a fight for more space and more memory. So anything they can do to save resources, they will. And if this means limiting the round counter to 255 and dedicating that number just to a single byte so that they can use that byte elsewhere, then they will. And that might be the reason why they chose to make the round counter 255. Just as a note, I recently learned that at the Black Ops 4 community reveal, Jason was asked why the round limit in Black Ops 3 was set to 255. He said that this was a decision that they had made intentionally. He also added that it had nothing to do with the memory of the game, so they most likely didn't make this decision to save space, but we do know for a fact that this was a decision that they made intentionally. Much like, say, paying homage to Pac-Man, they felt that nobody or most players aren't going to get to that number, and what they didn't realize was that skilled players such as NCG the Best are able to use their gobblegums and really quickly get to, say, round 255. And this, at the time, to most zombie players, was kind of unheard of. It wasn't until Black Ops 3 when people really started pushing how far you can get in zombies, thanks to all of these new gobblegums that we were able to receive. So Treyarch felt that maybe it was a good number to limit it at and didn't anticipate this many people getting to around 255. An interesting thing I do want to mention is that the round counter doesn't roll back to round 0, or at least it doesn't appear to, and there's two possible explanations for this. The first is that they have a manual thing within the game's code to stop the round counter from ticking back over from round 255 to round 0. It might just be as simple as an if statement to stop the ticker from going any higher. It turns out it is as simple as an if statement. Carlos, also known as Roll On Math, helped me out a lot in the research of this video, and he was going through the Black Ops 3 Zombies script and he found this function. This function is used to set a new round within the game, and it prevents the round from reaching round 255 by using an if statement, funny enough. One of the things that I noticed is that when I tried to force the game to go to round 255 or go higher than 255, it tried to imprint a 0 on top of the 255. So it might actually be possible to force the game to go past round 255, and when it does, it's not expecting to be at level 0 or round 0, and then it glitches out the round counter a little, and then you'll notice that on screen it tries to print a 0 on top of the 255. What you can also do though is just completely reset the round counter and it counts as normal. So this is just a minor bug, it's not a game-breaking bug. I imagine that Treyarch didn't even consider something like this, because how else would it be possible to get to round 0 unless you're doing what I'm doing and modding the game? Carlos was actually playing around with the round counter and had a different experience. He started the game off at round 255, and then when the game loaded up round 1, it took him to round 0. It was just a blank round. There was no round counter for the first round of the game. Once that round was complete, one more was added to it, and now it was round 1. The round counter had returned. This is interesting because this provides evidence to the theory that the round counter is stored in an 8-bit data type. This would allow Treyarch to have its round counter limit of 255, and it would also explain why the round counter went from 255 to 0 to 1 when Carlos was playing with it. This is what's known as an integer overflow, if you'd like to look more into it. Anyway, one thing I do believe it's important to note is that this is just a theory. Because we don't have access to the game's source code, we can't ourselves actually go under the hood and look at the game and try to figure out why it functions the way it is. We can't go in and see which type of data types they're using for their round counter and their kill counter. We can't go in and see how they're handling the round counter when it gets to 255. We just kind of have to make educated guesses based on the properties of those numbers in games and how they function. So keep everything I say with a grain of salt, but this right now is our best educated guess. That's going to wrap things up for this video. If you enjoyed it, maybe go to like, possibly subscribe for more. I'm always covering zombies, so if you enjoyed this video, I'm sure you'll enjoy the next one. I do want to give a big shout out and thank you to Roll On Math 42 Carlos for helping me out with this video and my research. It was a big help. Anyway, I'm going to go. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and